And so we have to endure the night. We have to endure the suffering that is in the night. But we must do so with our attention and concentration and our hope placed on joy, because the psalmist says joy comes not at midnight, but it comes in the morning. And we have to endure the night, trusting God that the light will come and that joy will come. As Christians, we have emerged from a spiritual legacy, a spiritual tradition, to where we do best when we are under pressure, and in some cases, even under persecution. I wouldn't quite call this a form of human persecution, but nevertheless, there is an invisible entity out there that seems to be oppressing, going about taking lives indiscriminately, leaving people behind in grief. Even in that context of the first century Roman world, where Christians were under severe persecution, they had to rely upon their belief in the invisible God who holds the entire universe in his hand, even in the midst of their suffering and their having to face the loss of life. So I see this pandemic in a similar fashion, that some of us will be facing death personally. We will lose loved ones. But I think the way we look at it, we have to face it as an imminent threat, as a real threat, as death has always been to us. Everybody was born terminally ill. We were born to die. But I believe that in our baptism, there is a message of faith that says that not only did Jesus come to give us his life, but he also came to give us his death, so that we who have all our lives have lived in the fear of death no longer have to live in the fear of death. And so I think that this moment is an opportunity for us to go back into pull up the resources that we have in our Christian faith to endure such a critical moment as we're in now. Even before Corona ever showed up, we all were facing death. We just didn't know when or how, and we still don't know when or how, but we're led to think about it more today because it's in the media 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so I would say for us going through this very critical time, for us to remember that this is the essence of the gospel, that Jesus died and gave us his death so that we might have eternal life. That means that life extends beyond this world and beyond temporal time. And if we can rely upon that, trust that, believe that, have confidence in that, then I believe we'll find the strength to get through this nightmare. Darkness has always been an oppositional force to light, but we know that light is more powerful. And I'm sure that when Joseph was sold into slavery by his own blood brothers, that somewhere in the pit, he wondered in his own mind, why would God allow this to happen to me? And it wasn't until he got into Egypt and ascended to great levels of power in that system of government, that he was able then to see as the famine came that what his brothers did, they did it for evil, but God uh, did it for good. He was placing Joseph in a strategic position so that on the other side of the crisis, he would be better prepared to do a good work. So God is always bringing good out of evil. He's always seeking to bring order out of chaos. He always allows the light to follow on the heels of the darkness, breaking forth with new light. And so we have to endure the night. We have to endure the suffering that is in the night, but we must do so with our attention and concentration and our hope placed on joy, because the psalmist says joy comes not at midnight, but it comes in the morning. And we have to endure the night, trusting God that the light will come and that joy will come. It will be manifest. And so we have to keep our hearts plugged into that belief and not allow the evil one to unplug us from the source of hope and the source of our survival. There are those who have uh, discovered some weaknesses that exist among us as a nation. And we as a people, we have to make sure that we do not allow those weaknesses that we've been working on and trying to improve to be used in an exploitative fashion. Jesus is teaching, I think it's very relevant here, where he says, a house that is divided against itself cannot stand. And I think our enemies have overheard our debates. They have watched our conflicts, and they know that our house is more divided now than it has ever been. And so you don't have to attack a divided house from the outside. You just be patient and you will see it collapse by internal implosion. When people began to see their fellow citizens as enemies. And so I would encourage the American people during this very critical time that we ask God to give us the wisdom to not allow our internal conflicts to serve to the advantage of those who are watching, hoping to see this country collapse as a result of this pandemic nightmare. We have to remember that we are fellow citizens inhabiting the same common homeland. And I hope that we will not allow selfishness to win the day. We have to be selfless. We have to really practice what we call in engaging and participating in a commonwealth, a commonwealth. And so commonwealth has to always be predicated upon a common health. And so your health must be my concern. My health must be your concern. And if we're all concerned about each other's health, that goes beyond the skin that we wear on the outside, and it goes to the spirit that we carry within us. And I think the spiritual connection, the spiritual connectivity is what will help us have the ability and the capacity to hang together as a society and as an American people. And we proudly espouse our belief in the lordship of Jesus Christ. A good number of us do in this country. And I think we have to remind ourselves of that, that our hope does not come from any political party, any political leaders. Our hope comes from the one who died on that Friday, stayed in the grave for those 3 days, but got up early on Easter morning with the angels pushing the stones back from the grave. And Jesus, who says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. got up declaring that all power in heaven and on earth is in my hands. That is the one to whom we look. That is the one in whom we put our complete trust and confidence in.